The original plan's revelations, the layout, the Black Ops 3 leaked development files have given us another motherload of a revelation on revelations. In the files, we can see the sketched out map for the original plan layout of Revelations, and combining that with a couple of other documents, we can work out the original plan for the map's flow, how you turned on power, unlocked Pack-a-Punch, and stuff cut from the Easter egg. All of that and more will be unveiled in this video, so stay tuned until the very end. Getting to talk on these developer documents has been a highlight of my recent zombies content on YouTube. While I do enjoy discussing Black Ops 6 and modern zombies and theorizing about it, getting to see these glimpses behind the scenes into cut content and also see Black Ops 3 in ways the community and I never have has really been reinvigorating for both myself and the channel. So I want to continue covering different things like this found in the documents, one video at a time. My goal is to slowly but surely cover everything I have access to, so that if one day these files end up lost or not as readily available for people, the content within does not become lost media. While I think discussing development cuts or leaks prior to something coming out, or just as it is coming out, can dampen the impact it can have and harm it, I think now, since it's nearly been a decade since Black Ops 3, people are just more interested in its development and historical context of different decisions that the team made at the time. And with it being so long, people feel extreme nostalgia for this game. This is allowing us to all relive our childhoods or whenever we did play the game for the very first time, and changes our perspective on things, even on likes, dislikes, and just the overall developmental cycle, and of the different decisions that the team made at the time. I have created a playlist which will be linked below, made of all of the videos I've made on the leaked developer documents, and this content will continue for the foreseeable future. While we've been recently discussing the histories of the various fractures, starting with the Eisendrache, which you can find linked here on screen and in the description, today I thought we'd jump a bit forward to discuss Black Ops 3's ending map, Revelations. Arguably the most climactic map in zombies history. The only one that literally says the end at the end. The hype for this map was insane. It was really a reckoning for our salvation, as the marketing put it. While we've discussed some of the stuff cut from its Easter egg and ending before, as well as the cut super Easter egg, this video is specifically going to focus on what seems to be a huge change in its layout and functionality. Now, this was actually discussed in interviews by Blundell at the time after it released, and there's been some old leaks from back in the day as well about the cut areas, but now we finally have the most concrete idea of what the initial plan was going to be for the map before it got cut down. From patterns so far, lots of cut content for Black Ops 3 mostly seems to be stuff in the ideation phase, just a plan for something that never came to fruition, and usually very isolated and not cross-referenced in other documents. Here, however, we could see multiple documents referencing the flow and map design in the original plan's layout, and a relatively detailed map which I've recreated as well. I won't be showing the exact one from the document for obvious reasons, but this is an almost one-to-one recreation, giving it my own flair. So although I can't show the original asset in the video, instead I recreated it as closely as possible so I can show that to you instead. Let's take a look now. Now, as you can see, the original codename for the map was Genesis, which, obviously it being the genesis and end of the universe, matches perfectly with Revelations. The biblical nature and inspiration for this map is stark. This is a lot to take in all at once, I completely understand, so now that we've seen the whole map, let's break down the intended flow and discuss the islands one at a time, comparing changes from the original plan here and the launch version of Revelations. Luckily for us, there is a giant file of stuff from the ideation phase of Revelations that they wrote down and is saved on the drive. The file, titled Ideation Summary.docx, is going to basically lead us by the hand through the map's layout. The ideation document is a treasure trove of ambitious and imaginative concepts that paint a wildly different picture from the final shipped map. While Revelations delivered a nostalgic mashup of iconic locations like Mob of the Dead and Origins, with the central hub and NACHT UNTOTEN connecting floating islands, and a Pack-a-Punch quest tied to the giant apothecon, Elder God, many of the document's bolstered ideas were left on the cutting room floor. For instance, the concept of a ray gun Mark IV, yes that's right, which was essentially just dual-wielding the original ray gun, or a mini mystery box weapon, a portable mystery box that transforms into a random weapon on activation, would have added thrilling new tools to the player's arsenal, shaking up the traditional weapon on activation. action, and would have added thrilling new tools to the player's arsenal, shaking up the traditional gunplay. Now these are wild concepts, and I can imagine the Ray Gun Mark IV got scrapped because they already did the Ray Gun Mark III, which dual wielded with the microwave weapon on Gorod Krovi. It would be underwhelming for this to be back-to-back wonder weapons on the map, and I don't know why it would be the Ray Gun Mark IV if functionally it would just be dual wielding ray guns. They could have just given us that without calling it the Mark IV. I really like the concept of having a mystery box, a mini one, literally as a weapon, but I can also understand why this got scrapped. It's probably a little bit too gimmicky and too quirky for zombies, even though at times with, say, the Apothecon Servant, it's very out there. I think this could have made for an awesome concept though for a gun game mode, but again, functionally in game it's probably easier to just cycle through the weapons as opposed to literally having a mystery box in your hands. I imagine the visual would look very funky. It is wild the amount of concepts that they had that never made the light of day. Way more was concepted than ever came in the released version of the game. That's why when I always hear people talking about scrap content for other games saying how much has been scrapped, I'm just thinking that's literally every single game in existence. In the gaming industry, more is scrapped than ends up releasing. I think this is the same in any sort of media or art form, music, paintings, TV, movies. We only see what gets released. There is a billion other ideas that never make the light of day. The document also proposed cross-dimensional gameplay, where players could jump between two versions of the same map, facing zombies 10 rounds stronger in one dimension, or unlocking invisible bridges only visible in the alternative reality. Imagine killing zombies into a zombie hamster wheel to generate power, or harpooning a female apothecon to zipline into its belly for a boss fight. Those are sentences I never thought would come out of my mouth, but yes, as you know from my recent video posted on the cut upgrade for the Apothecon Servant on Shadows of Evil, there were supposed to be different gendered Apothecon Servants that you could actually mate, and there were some of these concepts as well scrapped for Revelations, which I'll probably save for a future video, but that's just a little highlight there. You will start to notice from a lot of these documents that for people who complain zombies gets repetitive or generic over the years, the developers actually do have a lot of out there and innovative ideas, but it probably strays too much from the regular zombies formula. That's why most of this wild stuff never makes it into the game, because they do have to keep things generally relatively synonymous. It still needs to feel like zombies is DNA, and when they stray too far from it, I'm guessing the heads of the project try and reel them back in. It's not that the developers are not creative or unimaginative. Their imagines, as you can see, are bold, but they don't always translate well into gameplay or even narrative. These mechanics, alongside ideas like swimming through floating cubes of water to reach new areas, or a new bow of suffering assembled from pieces across the islands, showcase a level of creativity that could have made Revelations even more dynamic and unpredictable. Yes, if you saw my video on the cut super Easter egg, they did actually want to have the Der Eisendrache bows on this map, but they again got cut. They planned on having way more returning as well as new content on this map for it to be the ultimate orgasmic overload of nostalgia possible, but due to hardware limitations they could only do so much, as well as they didn't want to overbloat the map, making the gameplay not as smooth and strong. For now though, since this document is around 13 pages long, we're going to stick to stuff relevant to the map's flow and design, but let me know if you are interested in me discussing all of this other cut content in another video that deep dives into these specifics. Though, as this is something I definitely want to dive into, as there's more than enough here for potentially even many videos that we aren't discussing in depth here today. But let's finally get into the planned layout. To kick this off, though, let's start at the most natural place, the spawn. The spawn was still meant to be the house, Monty's in Sheffield. However, we can see on the map that instead of spawning in the grass outside of the house, the actual internals of it were meant to be playable. This actually makes sense. We see a shot of this area when the young Nikolai walks through the front area of the house when he arrives after Gorod Krovi from the teleporter, coming up out of the basement. The space here is actually pretty open and wide. The map shows us only the front downstairs of the house was playable, with the stairs we see Monty ascend blocked somehow in game. This would make the teleporting to Samantha's room part in the Easter egg still work, as separating the floors keeps the two as different spaces essentially in terms of game flow. From here, to start understanding our flow forward, we have to look back at a sketch from very early on in Revelations pre-production, stuck at the main bottom of the ideation documents we discussed. Again, this is not the original picture, but it's just a recreation to avoid copyright issues. I've once again recreated the image as best as I can so that I can show you it safely. The original image looked much like this, only sketched out in person on a whiteboard as opposed to digitally. One small thing of note is that even in this incredibly early phase of ideation, they already had the Apothecon 115 Sun in mind, the giant blue sphere in Revelations. Considering this is based off of the same book, Vril the Coming Race, as the name of Vril, which had been used in zombies to represent the Keepers before they were named, it's no surprise it ended up here. And it's also no surprise that Treyarch got away from the name Vril to just Keepers due to the ties with the Nazis, and they were definitely trying to stray away from that with the game, although it did interestingly still end up being mentioned on one of the Der Eisendrache John D books as a part of the probable impossible Easter egg, but I digress. That was just a small little detail I'm guessing the wider community wouldn't ever pick up on since we're only just now talking about it properly 8 years later. But seeing it this early likely means that the only two things locked into place for this map's development was the house in Sheffield and the giant sun. At the beginning, everything was freeball from there. From here, we see a few intended pathways, 2 red lines, a yellow, and one with a blue dotted line, each connecting to an island. The 2 red lines would be for fast transport forward, the yellow for paths exclusively unlocked after power is on, and the blue one representing a wall run challenge between islands, something almost entirely cut from the final map. While in their initial planning, we'd have to do wall running between islands at some point before reaching power, no matter what way we took from spawn. By the time it shipped, the only remnants of this existed at Der Eisendrache, where there existed a wall run path for a free perk and one of the rock locations for the main Easter egg quest part. I did like the couple instances of wall running this one, as well as the Pack-a-Punch room on Shadows of Evil. It just made the maps feel more dynamic. But I'm guessing if this was manually forced upon you as part of the general map's flow, it wouldn't have been as seamless, since I think Revelations flows really well with the release version. It's so easy traversing between the different islands, and even Blundell said in interviews in the past he was very proud of the team for getting the flow right with the map and how smooth it all felt. This would have definitely made it less smooth. Nevertheless, it has been leaked that for COD 2025 wall running is apparently going to be back, so I'm hoping that maybe a few instances, not too much, can be added in zombies in some capacity to just change the dynamics of things, and maybe they can do it in new and innovative ways that we didn't see in the couple rare instances in Black Ops 3, which I thought were so much fun. Let's say we avoid the wall run for now and take the path out of the left door of the house towards Origins, leaving the forward path and right path for later. Once we hopped on a Wonder Sphere and were flung towards the Origins island, we'd end up at the same part of Origins already depicted in Revelations, just much smaller. Generator 3. Rather than also getting the Pack-a-Punch Mound a path all the way to spawn, here we would have only gotten Generator 3 and the adjacent giant footprint spot, with the door that led back towards spawn opening up into a new section of the map. Each island was also planned to have a unique power gimmick, requiring each individual island to be powered in a special way. The Origins island gimmick was going to be charging the Origins generator located here and defending it, just as we did in the past. I don't know if it would just be the corrupted keepers or the Furies that you would defend against instead of the Templar zombies. This would power the island, including the section behind that door to spawn, the Mob of the Dead cell block. Rather than going down through the mound and into the cell block, we instead would open the door that blocked the trenches and end up right in the middle of the cell block. No cafeteria was originally intended at all. From here, the design of the map inherently influences our decision. We can't go forward without the main map's power being turned on, which seems to just mean the opposite island from spawn. So we are forced to use a wall run to progress to VERRUCKT. Had the power been on though, we would have used a jump pad to our next location, and one that the wall run skips over, the Ruby Rabbit. The Ruby Rabbit from Shadows of Evil is the first location entirely cut from Revelations we will discuss. Judging by the overhead map, you would land right at the front steps, with no way forward but going in, and then would use one of the balcony platforms on the top floor as another jump pad. Purchasing that jump pad would fly you to the same place that wall run back at Mob of the Dead leads to, VERRUCKT. It's no surprise this got cut because it definitely overcomplicates the flow of the map. While VERRUCKT itself seems to be mostly the same, as initially intended, it's what borders it that's interesting. Instead of simply containing the next jump pad, the edge of VERRUCKT was planned to open up into the entire KINO NUMA spawn hut. The plan here, judging by what island-specific power methods are left that do not name the island they take place on, would be to adjust solar panels on this island to point towards the Apothicon 115 sun, harnessing its energy and turning on the power here. While we see small visual nods to KINO NUMA in the map, the addition of its entire spawn hut would have turned this island into one of the largest in the map, only really beaten in size by the next island. From here, we have the option to hop to the middle central island, NACHT der Untoten, just as it is in the launch revelations. Instead, though, we will continue to circle around the outside using the jump pad outside of KINO NUMA. We land in an island familiar to anyone who's played the real revelations, the floating area without a roof outside KINO DER TOTEN that serves as a pseudo landing pad. Here, we would be able to find a coin and stick it inside the slot of a Nickelodeon machine, which, in case you don't know, is actually a small device with binocular-style lenses on them that people would look inside to see slideshows or very early movies, often referred to as picture shows. This one, once a coin was stuck inside, would turn on the power on the KINO DER TOTEN island. This room was also heavily involved in the multi-dimensional aspects that were originally planned for Revelations before most of it was cut from the game entirely. We touch on the boss fight aspects of this in a prior video on the cut boss fight, but it actually was accessible in the entire game. For now though, since that system is so incredibly complex, we will avoid the giant tangential discussion and instead keep going through the map. If you have interest in hearing about the dimension warping mechanics that the original quest was built around though, let me know and I'd be happy to do a separate video on that as well. Instead of going into the upper areas of KINO DER TOTEN, in this version we'd simply be allowed to walk right up to the aisle back into its original spawn room. And from here, we could buy a door to go outside onto the street. Yes, that is right. It's here that we get to potentially the most interesting part of today's discussion on the original layout, and the one with the most remnants of it still seen in the game today. In this layout, when you exited Kino, you would walk right into the Footlight district from Shadows of Evil, but not in some crazy two universes colliding style like some of the other islands. Here, we would simply be exiting the movie theater into the Footlight district, with this version of KINO DER TOTEN actually being that theater native to Morgue City. We can still see evidence of this in game with a bit of no clipping on Revelations. Most of the outside of the Kino theater is modeled, textured and still intact, even bits we wouldn't really see normally in game. And these outside bits, art style very clearly reflects that of Shadows of Evil, an oddity we didn't think too much about when the map dropped, although I did see some videos and discussion of it at the time, and I believe Blundell even confirmed in interviews back then that Shadows of Evil was a cut area that was meant to conjoin with the Kino section. But this area you can see outside in theater or no clipping is one that now shows itself as the single biggest proof of this original layout for the map. What's more is this idea that the Revelations Kino is likely from Shadows of Evil / Morgue City and thus Dimension 63 is interesting, as it may explain why it is we see the cutouts of the Great War as a stage play in this version of KINO DER TOTEN that isn't present in the Black Ops 1 / Chronicles iterations. This war was part of the genuine history of Dimension 63, and perhaps became folklore that was depicted in this theatre. Although I always sort of interpreted this as being a version of the Kino inside of Monty's Perfect World Agatha, and this could have been where the children, through learning of the Great War from, I guess, Monty talking about it with them, would reenact it, just as they would reenact the events of the zombie storyline through playing with the toys and different memorabilia and items and iconography, iconic and memorable to zombies' history. Interestingly enough though, Monty is depicted as a zombie. You can see he's got the red scarf on, and he's fighting on the side of the Apothicons and not the Keepers in this depiction. So I don't know, I have literally no idea what this was even hinting at. Was it just hinting Monty is evil? Was this maybe some sort of corrupted version of what happened from the Shadow Man? I don't know what this could even mean. It literally factors into no other theories, unless it was just supposed to imply the similarities between Monty and the Shadow Man, considering we find out come Black Ops 4 that they look practically alike in their normal squid-like forms, bar their clothing. But I think that's a bit too far-fetched of an implication. From here, we are either able to take a wall run back to the spawn, skipping the side location of Shangri-La, go to NACHT or UNTOTEN in the middle by using the stairs that originally led up to the tram, or take the last unused jump pad to the Shangri-La island outside the direction from spawn we initially did not choose. The island, without the connection to Der Eisendrache and KINO Der Toten, remains by far the smallest in the game, smaller than even NACHT or UNTOTEN's. The entire island is simply the stairs leading to its original Pack-a-Punch location and its spawn. So basically what was depicted in the launch revelations of it, but entirely on its own as an island. Here, the power would be activated by fixing a broken dam that would get activated by the flowing water coming out of the statues by the staircase, though it's not said what this would even power with the island being so small and close to spawn. I guess just the double tap machine, but I guess we don't know what machines were also going to be planted here initially. Going to NACHT or UNTOTEN would let us aim some sort of device they don't really describe at the Apotheken's sun and drain energy from it using different verbiage than the planned solar panels earlier. This device would aid us in catching the Apotheken for unlocking Pack-a-Punch, though in a way so complicated and frankly shocking it puts the Cut Apotheken Servant upgrade that I talked about in that prior video to shame. But that is also a big enough discussion for its own video, so expect that coming out at some point in this series. There is so much to discuss, especially on Revelations. It has by far the most cut content. I could be here for decades. But that pretty much wraps it up for our discussion on the Revelations cut map layout breakdown and the planned features for each island in this ideation phase. Like I said, there's lots more documents to go through. As I've said a million times, I really enjoy getting to deep dive all of this stuff, as well as assisting in preservation efforts for the cool information within. While I'd really like to not get involved with showing or disseminating the files myself, I think it's important that we as Zombies fans ensure this information is preserved and made accessible to as many people as possible. As this is history in the making. Hundreds of years down the line, who knows if the Call of Duty franchise is still going on, or even if it's ended, collectors, game historians could still be interested in all of this backstory and understanding the context of how everything came to be, or didn't come to be. But even now, with as many as it feels like we've done already, there is still far more content to cover than you'd expect. So let me know if there's any specific maps or specific cut Easter eggs or anything you would like me to cover in future videos, and I'd be happy to look into that to explore in the future. But for now, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for the latest and greatest Call of Duty news information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you with plenty more to come. Bye.